Hey, this is not a how-to video on knot tying. There are plenty of how-to links and videos in the related blog post here, but this is strictly just for my own documentation to prove that I have checked off something that was on my life list. And in this case, it was to learn a certain set of knots that I find either interesting or really practical. So here we go. Alright, first one is the bowline. A lot of people pronounce it bowline, but it's, from the books I've read, it's bowline. There's a few different ways. This is the one-handed way, or a one-handed way. It's pretty simple. Great fixed loop. Another way I learned from ITS Tactical is if you only have one hand free and someone throws you a rope, you can use your own hand to create the loop and feed it through the hole created by hand. And then finally, in my research, it's really recommended that you learn how to tie it around somebody else or from a different perspective than your own. So one idea is to use the working end and then reverse the loop onto the other side, so it's in the standing end, and then just finish the knot that way. Alright, next is kind of a standard that I think scouts and everybody else has to learn. It's a taut line. There's a few different ways. I'd probably be using a different lighter weight line, but just to get it done, I'll show you. I like to do it this way, where you create a D and reverse the half hitch direction. It's supposedly a little bit harder to tighten up, and I agree, but on the other hand, it tends to twist less and hold better. So there you have it. That's your top line. If you need to adjust it, that's all you do. Alright, now the next one is another tip I got from ITS Tactical, and it's called the power cinch. And it's a series of knots to create tension on a line. Like if I had this tied on another tree and we were hanging a tarp, to use their example. And in addition to making it an efficient way to get tension on a line, it's also designed to be able to take it down really quickly, so you're not having to untie knots. They're basically all slips. So there you go, you've got your tension on the line, and when you're ready to go, just pull that out, and then actually have to feed that out, and then pop that one out. Alright, next one is pole hitch. So if you've got a pole, you can use this in boating situations really quick and really secure. You tie it in the pipe like that. Which leads me into the trucker's hitch, related in concept to the top line. There's a lot of different ways to tie this. You'll see online and in books, and a lot of people, internet trolls complaining that people aren't doing it correctly or whatever, but this is the way I saw it documented that makes the most sense to me. Basically, you create a directional figure 8 like that. This end would be over your load, this end would go around the anchor point on the other side of your load, come back, and then you can really crank with that mechanical advantage like that, like you would have with a pulley system. And then you can just finish it off with a couple half hitches like that. The next one I found is helpful is a stopper knot. It's actually a knot, not a hitch or a loop. And this one is named the Ashley knot by the guy who invented sort of the current knot tying Bible, the Ashley Book of Knots. And its point is to create a knot that won't come out of a hole. So this makes kind of a pretty triangle. If it's not looking pretty, you probably don't have it right. Just tighten it up and then cinch it down, and that will stay wherever you want it. Okay, now I've got a few what are called bends, which are ways to attach, or can be ways to attach ropes. This first one's called the Zeppelin Bend. It's one that I've read is not as popular as it should be. It's really effective, and you'll see why. Like a lot of knots, it's not, it's designed to maintain the strength. This one doesn't slip and it doesn't jam, and even if you've got that much daylight in it, it just gets tighter and tighter. You can hook it up, connect vehicles and tow them and whatnot with a thing like this. And then when you're done, it just easily pulls right apart. It's called a symmetrical bend, if I didn't already say that. Another way to tie two lines would be fisherman's knot. There's a single, double, and triple. I'll do the double. The Zeppelin bend can be used on really heavy material. The fisherman's knot can be used on anything, including, as you might expect, fishing lines or lighter stuff. It's also really effective. Should look kind of orderly like that. And then the last one is called a sheet bend. It's considered a standard knot that everyone should know. It's, depending on your use, it's not super secure, but it can be super fast, and it can be used in fixing nets and other things. But one use is to connect lines of differing size. If they differ greatly, it's going to be less secure, but you can see it's a pretty quick knot. If it's tied correctly, both of these ends are on the same side. If the load is intermittent, it'll probably slip. In fact, they slip quite a bit, and one way to improve it quickly is just to what they call a double sheet bend, also named the Beckett bend. Alright, and now here is another knot that is popular, or should be popular, from what I read. It's super effective, and it works with lighter material or bigger stuff, and although it's typically done in lighter material, it's called a constrictor knot, and it's super secure. It basically starts with a clove hitch, and then just one more simple step to throw it under there. And the disadvantage is, if there is it won't slip, but the disadvantage is it will jam, and a lot of times if it's under a lot of load, you'll have to cut it loose. But you can use this little small stuff from hanging ornaments to, it's called a binding knot. You can tie a bag with it. Another way to tie it, I'll show this because it's a little bit bigger, is you can pull it and loop it if you have access to the end. And it looks kind of like that until you tighten it up. And there are a few other tricks for tying it, but those are the ones I know. Next is what's called a threaded figure eight. And figure eight, you could thread, so there's your 8, you could thread another rope into this. That is one way you can really securely attach 2 ropes. You could also tie it in the bight, so you end up with a loop like that. But if you want to thread it to a really secure anchor point that you can't open, like a carabiner, you have to thread it. And so this is another ITS tactical one I learned. So you just basically chase the figure 8 around. Oops. So if I were to go around this pole, one thing to keep in mind is that it's recommended that for the standing end be on the outside on that loop. So when you thread this one, you need to start on the outside of the first one, so when you come back around, you're going to be on the inside of the other one. And it'll look something like that, and then tightens up, and this extra material really is good for absorbing shock. And then you probably want to back it up with a couple overhand knots or something similar. And then finally, that's it for the knots. There is a great way to store ropes and cords that makes it possible to throw them around or whatever, and they will never become tangled, and you can easily unwrap them when you're ready to use them, and it's called a chain sennit. So you get your ends and basically find the midpoint of the rope. Get the extra material out here. Like this. And then some people would call it a daisy chain, and then you can quickly feed the loops into this like so, and then when you're done you've got this series of chain loops, and you can hang it up, you can tie it off with an overhand knot, you can ball it up, do whatever you want, you can store it any way you want, and this will never tangle in this situation. And what's better, when you're ready to use it, just let it go and it falls apart quickly. Alright, there it is, checked off my list.